He said, "Mom, just stay in the garage this Thanksgiving." He didn't know I still owned the deed and could cancel their $470.00 mortgage with one call. "Mom, just eat and then head to the garage, okay? There's a blanket and some snacks out there. We really want the house to feel joyful tonight." That was what Jennifer said to me, standing in her pressed white apron with lashes long enough to sweep dust off the floor and her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. She said it in front of 3 of her friends, too, none of whom looked up from their phones. I just stood there, holding my plate, hands trembling not because of age, but because of restraint. Alex didn't even look up from his beer. He just muttered, "It's just one night. Mom, don't make this a thing. Please. We're trying to keep the mood light. Keep the mood light. On Thanksgiving, in my house." I carried my plate like a waitress to the garage door and opened it slowly. The cold hit first. Then the smell. Fumes of old oil, dust, and rust. A space heater buzzed weakly in the corner, but it barely cut through the air. A flannel blanket had been thrown over a folding chair next to the water heater. And next to that, my dog Rusty lay curled on an old towel, tail thumping weakly. I sat down without a word, placed the plate on my knees, and let my eyes adjust to the dim light. The food was cold, the turkey dry. The mashed potatoes were instant. I ate slowly, quietly, each bite settling into my stomach like a weight of insult more than nourishment. I could hear the laughter through the wall, real laughter, the kind that comes with too much wine and not enough decency. Rusty put his head on my foot. "You know, I've stayed quiet a long time, years, not because I was weak, but because silence is where you learn what people really think of you, what they'll say when they think you don't matter, what they'll do when they think you won't push back. But if you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening, because this is not the story of a sad old woman sitting alone on a holiday. This is the story of how I let them believe I had nothing left, so they could show who they truly were." Alex and Jennifer weren't always like this. Or maybe they were and I refused to see it. When Alex lost his job 6 years ago, they came to me desperate. They couldn't pay the mortgage. Jennifer was pregnant with Ava. They had nowhere to go. I opened my door, my heart, and my wallet. I sold my gold bracelet, my mother's gift to me on my wedding day. I used it to cover 3 months of their back payments. I co-signed a refinance for them when the bank wouldn't touch Alex's credit. I gave them my house deed to use as collateral for a second mortgage because, and I quote, "No one else will help us, Mom." I fed them, housed them. I slept on the couch while they took my bed and turned my sunroom into a nursery. And when Alex got a new job and they started making money again, Jennifer decided the house was too many framed photos of my husband in uniform, too many rosaries, too many outdated wooden chairs. She began redecorating, little by little, until nothing in that house looked like me anymore. Then they said it was their turn to host Thanksgiving. I said yes, like I always did. But what they really meant was, "It's your turn to be invisible." Jennifer's Instagram said it all. Thankful for fresh starts, clean energy, and chosen family. Not a word about me. Not a word about the woman who built the very floor she walked on. You see, that's the thing about entitlement. It doesn't whisper. It announces itself like a trumpet blast, expecting you to applaud. But I didn't clap. I sat in the garage and listened. I heard Jennifer say, "I told her the garage would be quieter and she just went no fight at all. Old people really don't get how lucky they are." I heard Alex chuckle and say, "She's always been like that. Passive. Easier this way. Easier." They thought I was easy. But the thing about people like me is, we don't fight in the open. We fight with memory, with documents, with truth. And that night, while the heater buzzed and Rusty sighed, I knew something they didn't. I still held the deed, not just emotionally, not just symbolically, legally. And with one phone call, I could cancel the $470,000 mortgage they thought they controlled, because they had used my property to secure it, because they had never removed me from the title, because while they played house, I made sure the foundation stayed mine. That was the night I stopped being quiet. That was the night I stopped protecting them from themselves. I was not always the woman in the garage. Before my knees stiffened and my hair turned white, I stood in front of chalkboards for 34 years, teaching literature to students most schools had given up on. I taught them not just to read, but to believe they had the right to speak, to think, to matter. And in that old classroom, where windows stuck in summer and heaters coughed all winter, I found meaning. I could have sent Alex to a private school. We had the savings. Marcus, God rest his soul, wanted that too. But then came Kimberly. 11 years old, all elbows and big questions, living out of a shelter with her little brother. She had no coat that first December and wrote her book reports on the back of grocery receipts. I used the tuition money, bought coats, food, paid a month's rent for her mother, quietly, without ceremony. Alex never forgave me. Years later, when he learned the truth, he looked at me like I had betrayed him, like I had stolen something sacred and given it away to strangers. So I was second priority, he said. He was 17, angry, hurt, and I did not know how to explain that sometimes doing right means not doing easy. Jennifer came into our lives like a gust of expensive perfume and stiletto confidence. I tried, I did. I offered my wedding pearls for her bouquet, helped hand-stitch her veil, cooked every dish for their engagement dinner by hand. But I made one mistake, one I will never be allowed to forget. I told her once, after she snapped at the waitress for bringing the wrong wine, that being kind is more lasting than being right. She never looked at me the same. From then on, I was the fossil in the corner. The antique, the outdated voice with out-of-date values. She would compliment my cooking with the kind of smile people reserve for children's drawings. Polite, condescending, empty. She redecorated my kitchen while I was in the hospital for a minor fall, that it needed to feel fresh. Threw out the lace curtains I hemmed by hand, the ceramic cookie jar Marcus bought in 1982, even the hand-painted rooster tiles we picked on our 10th anniversary. "Too country," she sniffed. "We're going for a clean, minimalist vibe." Yet she had no problem using my china when her book club came over, or wearing my vintage brooch on Thanksgiving, or stretching out on the couch Marcus built with his own hands when she was tired. The hypocrisy did not end there. She called my teapot witchy, my quilts smothering, said I dressed like an ad for depression, but when her friends asked about the cozy charm of the home, she'd say, "Oh, we kept some of his mom's touches, for the character." Character. That is what I had been reduced to, a backdrop, a branding prop. Never mind that the mortgage on this house, this very house, was saved by my retirement fund when Alex lost his job in 2008. Or that the second time he nearly went under, I sold my wedding bangles, gold, passed down from my grandmother, to clear his debt. They were married, struggling and humiliated. They moved in. I made room. Now I was just in the way. But make no mistake, memory is not soft. It sharpens, hardens, cuts through even the glossiest filters and fake smiles. And friends, if you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. The irony? Jennifer once laughed in front of her influencer friends and said, "You can always tell old money by the ugly furniture." She was sitting in my mother's rocking chair. They sipped wine, chilled in my icebox. They staged Instagram photos on the very porch I power washed with arthritic hands. But to her, I was an inconvenience, a whisper in the wrong aesthetic, a flaw in the filter. Alex no longer called me Mom when friends were around. I was Anne, as if being his mother had expired when I stopped paying for things. But I remember all of it, and if they think garage walls and silence will erase that, they have much to learn, because the past does not fade. It waits, it listens, and sometimes it fights back, quietly, patiently, but with precision. I did not expect it, not that night, not while I sat in the garage eating turkey cold enough to crack teeth and listening to their laughter drift in through the walls. But later, when the dishes were done and the guests had gone, I heard their voices through the thin garage walls. "You get the lawyer on Monday. Johnston, the one who helped with my aunt's guardianship," Jennifer said. She sounded calm, precise, terrifying. They were standing in my kitchen, my own kitchen, where I had cooked for decades, Jennifer continued, softer. If she does not sign the deed, we petition for guardianship. We claim confusion or dementia. That way the property belongs to us. I felt the floor shift under me, though I was still sitting. Alex's voice carried next. Yeah, she's already forgot the stove twice this month. Just record that. Judge eats that up. We move fast, liquidate, pay off the $470.00 K mortgage, and we're done. I froze. My chest tightened. They had planned this meticulously. I sat there, not moving, but my mind raced. They intended to corner me. With forged test results, selective editing of my forgetfulness, with a tape of me asking for the salt 3 times in one meal cloaked as confusion. They had even placed a camera in my kitchen. I saw the light blinking once, small, nearly invisible behind the spice rack. That's to catch me asking the same question repeatedly, a staged moment to justify their case, that I was no longer capable of managing my affairs. Their words weren't just cold, they were a confession. They meant to rewrite everything, including the history of who built this home. I stayed silent. Inside, something snapped. Not with anger, but a kind of awakening. They revealed their true selves that night. My own son and his wife plotting against me. The woman who had sheltered them in the storm. The woman who sold her wedding gold to keep them afloat. They called this a home, but it was a battleground. And I had lived it with grace for decades. But grace was not silence. That night, under the weeds rattled by the ductwork and the buzz of the garage light, I made a quiet vow. Let them think I am helpless. Let them think I will cave. They had waited for that moment, but they had not counted on my memory. They had not counted on the law. They had not counted on me. Because when the time comes, the person who built the foundation still holds the keys, even if they are told to sit in the dark. And I am still holding mine. I could not confront them yet. Their plan was too sharp, too well rehearsed. So I chose another weapon, silence, backed by law. I called Mia, my old student from 30 years ago. She had once said, "You saved me, Miss Anne," when she was facing expulsion for suspensions I coached her through. She is now an estate lawyer, nimble and fierce. Mia arrived one afternoon while Alex and Jennifer were at a seminar in Dallas. I told her everything. The garage dinner, the hidden camera, the script for dementia. She listened, nodded, and opened her laptop. That house, she said quietly, is prime for asset protection. We'll turn it into a charitable trust. I did not ask questions. I knew what that meant. No sale, no hijacking. Even if they got guardianship papers stamped, the law could shield the home, layer upon layer, until they tapped out. We filed paperwork. We created the Veterans Legacy Home Trust, named in honor of Marcus and the teachers of color I once taught. The house became the corpus of a nonprofit trust, with me as the appointor and Mia as successor trustee. Paperwork clearly stated no conveyance, sale, encumbrance, or transfer, unless signed by the grantor, that is me, in the presence of 2 independent witnesses. Then the twist. Even if a court declared me incapacitated, the trust remained intact and immune. Guardianship gives control over person or finances, but not over an irrevocable trust created while the grandfather was still capable. It's a known protective structure, favored in asset law for exactly this reason. So even if Alex or Jennifer petitioned for control, they'd find themselves staring at a legal maze with no exit. I continued my routine. I baked pies, patched old clothes, hummed hymns in the afternoon. Alex came in and asked for spaghetti. I served it. Jennifer said, "Thank you, that was super." I smiled and added, "You're welcome." But underneath I was changing the locks, not with bolts but with statutes. The trust would be enforced by law, not by force. Then one afternoon, when they were again planning in the living room, Mia called to say the certificate had arrived. It was real. Filed, recorded, notices to the Attorney General, the works. The trust was active. That night the garage felt different. Not lonely, but expectant, like the house itself knew I had laid a trap, like every board and beam stood straighter in pride. Anne would fight, silently but with blueprint clarity, and when they finally sought the deed to foreclose or to claim guardianship, they would find the fortress already built. Because sometimes the strongest defiance is not noise, but paperwork, precision, and patience. They called it a friendsgiving. Jennifer's term, not mine. She spent days planning, color coordinating the throw pillows with the napkin rings, hiring a florist for something called a tablescape. The house smelled like cinnamon candles and curated perfection, but nowhere in her plans was I mentioned. Unless you count the note she left on my door that morning. A soft knock, then paper sliding under the crack. No words, no eye contact, just this. Please wear the beige apron during the event. Stay near the kitchen. We'll call if we need help with the kids. Try not to interrupt the live stream. I held the note like it might sting. Beige apron. Near the kitchen. Help with the kids. Not a guest, not even family. Just a silent, faceless presence, a prop in their performance. By noon the guests arrived. Young couples, filtered and filtered again, the kind who say, "We're manifesting a wine sponsorship," and mean it. Every laugh was half a decibel too loud. Every compliment sounded like a Yelp review. The air reeked of artificial gratitude. Jennifer wore cream silk and a permanent smile. This home, she declared during her introduction, has so much history. It belonged to Alex's mother, who now lives with us and helps out. She's sort of our built-in childcare/kitchen angel. I stood frozen, just out of frame, my beige apron crisp against my Sunday dress. No one looked at me. I wasn't meant to exist beyond the margins, until one woman, tall, glossy hair, teeth too white to be real, wandered into the kitchen and spotted me arranging the pie trays. "Oh," she gasped, surprised. "You must be the housekeeper. Jennifer is so lucky." "Here," she smiled and pressed a folded bill into my hand. "Happy holidays, sweetie." It was $5. I did not correct her. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. Later, during dessert, I stepped into the dining room just to remember what a real Thanksgiving used to look like. That was my mistake. "Mom," Jennifer hissed, rushing over with a camera in her hand, "can you please stay out of the background? We're live streaming, and the lighting's not flattering." I stared at her. "I mean, the apron's cute and all," she added, forcing a laugh. "But it's giving Downton Abbey meets thrift store." One of her friends chuckled. Another whispered, "Did she just come out of the pantry?" I tried to turn, to leave with some dignity, but then Alex chimed in. "Come on, Mom, it's just a few hours. Don't make it weird, everyone's watching." As if I was the one disrupting their carefully edited illusion. And then Jennifer, with her flawless makeup and flawless malice, looked me up and down and said it. "Well, no offense, but you do kind of look out of place. Maybe stick to the kitchen? The vibe's more youthful out here." I didn't move. "Okay, then at least," she reached for her phone, "could you just not look so lost? You're kind of killing the aesthetic." The words didn't sting, not because they were kind, but because they were expected. She had been erasing me for years. Today, she simply made it official. One guest, a young man with a craft beer in hand, walked over and asked, "Excuse me, do you know where the host keeps the corkscrew?" He paused, seeing my eyes. "Oh," he said, embarrassed. "Sorry. I thought you were staff," Jennifer overheard and giggled. "She kind of is." Another laugh, another sip, and then the final humiliation. The doorbell rang. Jennifer rushed to answer it, greeting two influencers who arrived with a ring light and monogrammed wine bottles. "This is the content crew," she squealed. "They're doing a segment on our 3 generations, 1 table feature. Isn't that cute?" But when the camera panned across the table, she blocked me with her body. "Let's get the kids on this side," she said quickly. "Anne, can you help with the pie in the kitchen?" I didn't respond. I stood there, beige apron tight around my waist, in a house I built, surrounded by strangers taking pictures of a life I no longer recognized. The camera passed me like I was a coat rack. I took a seat in the far corner, near the dog's bed, next to the utility shelf stacked with Jennifer's seasonal decor bins labeled Spring Mood and Fall Cozy. They had assigned me a folding chair. No placemat. No name card. Jennifer had made place cards for everyone else, even the kids, but not me. I watched them eat. I watched my son smile for the camera. I watched my granddaughter recite a TikTok dance between bites of turkey. And I remembered a different Thanksgiving, the year Alex got his acceptance letter. He ran into the kitchen screaming, waving the envelope, and I dropped the sweet potatoes in joy. Marcus lifted him off the ground and spun him around. We had no money that year, just casseroles, laughter, and a pie that collapsed in the oven. But it was real, not performative, not sponsored, not live-streamed to strangers for validation. After dinner, as guests trickled out, Jennifer leaned over and whispered, "Thanks for staying quiet. Really, you're getting better at knowing your place." Then she laughed and walked away. But I did not cry. I did not protest. I just watched her. Every movement, every lie, every friend who left lipstick on my wine glasses, I watched and waited. Because a house isn't just wood and walls. It's memory, it's witness. And sometimes, when you are treated like furniture, like background noise, you become the one thing they forget to fear, a silent observer, one who remembers everything, and one who's already made the call that will unravel it all. The last candle hadn't even burned halfway down when the knock came at the door. It was sharp, firm, and far too official sounding for a holiday visit. Jennifer frowned, irritated. "Alex, get that. I didn't order anything." Alex opened the door and found a man in a navy suit, holding a black leather portfolio. His voice was calm, but carried weight. "Good evening. Is Mrs. Ann Whitmore present?" Everyone paused. I rose slowly from my folding chair in the corner, where I had just watched the last round of selfies with cranberry sauce. "I am Ann," I said. The man nodded with great care. "Ma'am, my name is Howard Reese. I'm with the Texas Department of State Historical Preservation. I'm here regarding a final designation." He stepped inside. The entire room stilled. Jennifer blinked, uncertain. A few guests leaned in, phones already out. Mr. Reese opened the folder. Effective immediately, this home is hereby recognized as a registered Texas historic property under Code 8.5 of the State Preservation Statute. Designation number TX 879-DG. He glanced at Jennifer, then at Alex. "This means the structure, land, and primary fixtures are protected by state law. Any attempt to sell, modify, or transfer ownership without written authorization from the founder trustee is a federal and state violation." A gasp rippled through the room. Jennifer stepped forward, stammering, "Wait, I don't understand. This is our house. We live here. We've been—" Mr. Reese turned to me. "Ma'am, per state records, you submitted the initial application 2 years ago and followed through with historical documentation, including your late husband's war records, your teaching legacy, and the preservation deed filed last quarter. I'm here to deliver this in person." He handed me a plaque. It was heavy, beautiful, etched with gold. Whitmore Home, Texas Historical Legacy Site. Established by Veterans Legacy Trust. Jennifer's face lost all color. Alex looked like he had swallowed glass. And then, because fate has an impeccable sense of irony, one of the guests gasped again. "Oh my God, is this being recorded?" They were live streaming. Right then, right there, the whole dinner, including this moment. Jennifer's camera had been propped on a tripod, angled toward the table, and the feed was still rolling. Tens of thousands were watching. Someone said, "Check the comments, this is blowing up," and then, right on cue, Jennifer broke. She stepped toward me, face flushed with panic, and hissed, "This isn't fair! You tricked us!" Then louder, "I don't care what kind of vet he was, this is my house now!" The room went silent, the silence of an earthquake about to begin. Even Mr. Reese looked stunned. Jennifer kept going, unraveling before a live stream audience of thousands. "I don't care if her husband fought in 5 wars. That woman has been a burden from the second I met her. I've done everything in this house, every renovation, every dish, every dinner. And now what? She gets to hand it over to some dusty history club?" Someone's phone dinged with a news alert. Viral clip. Texas woman explodes after historic deed protects elderly mother-in-law's home. Within minutes, it spread like a spark to dry grass. The comments were brutal. She called her MIL a burden on Thanksgiving, protect grandma at all costs. Imagine using someone's house for clout and then screaming when you can't sell it. One commenter wrote, "I hope she chokes on her beige aesthetic." Another, "Lady forgot the house came with a foundation. Built by love, not Pinterest." Jennifer fled to the bathroom. Someone followed her with a phone. Alex stood frozen. He turned to me with wide eyes and a whisper of something that might have once been shame. Mom, what did you do? I looked at him, really looked. You called me forgetful, I said. You plotted behind my back. You tried to declare me incompetent. I held up the plaque. This is my home, my legacy. You just live here. No one applauded, but no one needed to. I had taken back the ground beneath their curated feet. With law, with love, with timing. They had tried to erase me from the picture. Now they would be remembered forever as the ones who tried to evict a veteran's widow, live in front of the whole nation, and I would be remembered as the woman who did not leave the table, even when they begged me to disappear. Justice has a funny way of arriving. It does not kick down doors. It doesn't always wear a badge or bang a gavel. Sometimes it arrives in quiet emails, closed-door meetings, and HR memos marked urgent. Jennifer lost her job 2 days after the live stream went viral. The school board called it a violation of ethical conduct unbecoming of an educator. Their statement was concise: no place in our classrooms for those who publicly demean the elderly, especially veterans' families. They offered her a severance package if she agreed to resign without protest. She refused. They fired her anyway. The influencer deals dried up next. No more sponsored skincare sets. No more collaborations with farmhouse decor brands. Screenshots of her tantrum had gone everywhere. The screaming, the red face, the shriek of "This is my house," replayed with captions and laughing emojis. They called her Thanksgiving Karen. Alex didn't fare much better. Turns out, when you list your home on the market while trying to stage a fraudulent transfer of title, certain brokers get nervous. Their agent filed a claim for breach of contract and legal misrepresentation. A judge ordered Alex to cover the fees. That alone would have sunk them. But the IRS was next. The viral attention unearthed more than shame. It uncovered side income they never reported, gifts from unregistered consulting gigs, unreported loan forgiveness from Jennifer's mother, even past due tax filings for a podcast that Alex claimed never made money. It did. Now he was under audit. Now they were afraid. They received official notice from the state trust administrator that their residency in the home was temporary at the sole discretion of the founder. That founder was me. Mia filed the revocation order on my behalf. They had 30 days to vacate. No appeal, no negotiation, no loophole. Their bank account had just enough for a deposit on an apartment, but every application came back denied. Background checks linked them to the viral video. Some landlords outright laughed. Jennifer broke down one night in the hallway. I found her curled against the linen closet door, mascara running, fists clenched. "Please," she whispered. "We don't have anywhere else." Alex stood behind her, arms crossed, eyes red but dry. "Mom, we screwed up. We know that. But you don't want your grandkids out on the street, do you?" I looked at him for a long time. Then I said what had waited decades in my chest. "You once said I was just a dusty antique in the background." He looked down. I continued, "Well now, you can stay out of the frame, just like you wanted." He blinked. "I don't understand. You and Jennifer built a life without me, without my values, without gratitude. So go ahead, build your future without my roof," Jennifer whimpered. "We were just trying to start over." "And I'm just trying," I said softly, "to finish with dignity." They moved out on the 29th. Took nothing but clothes and an espresso machine. I kept the photos, the papers, the plaque, and the silence they left behind. It was the most honest sound they had ever given me. The house no longer smells like tension. Now it smells of old books and children's laughter, of chalk dust, warm coffee, and stories long overdue to be told. 3 months after Alex and Jennifer left, the transformation began. Slowly, deliberately, like stitching a wound closed, not just painting over the scar. Mia helped me file the final paperwork to convert the property into a registered community space. We named it the Whitmore Legacy House, a learning center, open reading room, and rotating exhibit space honoring veterans, teachers, and forgotten history. Local volunteers came, with paint, shelves, folding chairs. Someone donated a projector for free movie nights. Former students dropped off yearbooks and medals and photos from field trips they said they never forgot. Every Wednesday we hold ethics and empathy sessions. I read aloud from letters written by Marcus when he was stationed overseas. Then the children ask questions. Sometimes they cry. Sometimes I do too. The neighborhood kids come for cookies and stay for the stories. One little boy asked if I had ever been to war. I smiled and said, "No, sweet one, but I've survived a few battles all the same." They nodded, as if they understood more than most adults ever had. Then one day a local news anchor stopped by. She wanted to do a feature about the viral grandma who outwitted her son and built a legacy instead. I hesitated, but then I stood in the very dining room where I had once been told to stay out of frame. This time, they angled the lights to make sure my face was seen. They asked if I had anything I wanted to say to the world. I looked at the camera and said, simply, "I don't need an apology. I just need people to remember him and remember what is right." That clip aired statewide. Donations poured in. A new garden was planted out back, filled with native Texas flowers and hand-painted stones by schoolchildren. I sit there often, watching the bees, listening to laughter that doesn't come with mockery. One Saturday, a little girl with freckles and wild curls tugged on my skirt as I was sorting books in the library room. "Excuse me," she whispered shyly. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," I said. She bit her lip, then looked up. "I want to grow up to be just like you." I blinked, then knelt beside her. "No, my dear," I said, placing a hand on her tiny shoulder. "I want you to grow up stronger than me and to speak up sooner." She nodded, solemn as a soldier. The dedication ceremony came in spring. We had veterans, teachers, families, news crews, and neighbors, all standing shoulder to shoulder beneath the oak tree in front of the house. There, in a patch of trimmed grass once used for holiday lawn inflatables, we placed a stone marker. Etched in silver and deep red granite, it read, "Legacy, the home of Officer Marcus and Teacher Ann Whitmore, preserved by silence, turned into history." Some clapped, some cried. I stood there quietly, hands folded, then I turned and walked back inside. Because there were stories waiting to be read. Pies needing baking, a new generation watching closely, not for perfection, but for truth. And the truth was simple. They tried to silence me. But I chose to wait, to remember. And when I finally spoke, I didn't shout. I opened a door. And the whole world listened. They thought the story ended with the plaque. With the cameras turned off, the headlines faded, and the house safe from sale. But for me, the real story began after the silence. Weeks after the dedication, I found a letter tucked under the porch mat. No envelope, just paper, carefully folded, sealed with a paperclip. I opened it with hands that remembered secrets. It was from a woman named Teresa, in her 40s. She had watched the viral video, seen Jennifer scream and me stand still. Her words were shaky. "I haven't spoken to my own mother in 5 years. Your story made me ashamed. She wasn't perfect, but she loved me. I see that now. I hope it's not too late." I read it 3 times. Then I cried for all the daughters who wake up too late and all the mothers who never stopped waiting. That letter sparked something I hadn't planned for. Suddenly, the Whitmore house became more than a tribute. It became a bridge. We launched a new program, Second Letters. We invited anyone, child, parent, caregiver, to write the letter they never sent. We hung the letters on a clothesline between 2 oak trees in the garden. By spring, the string sagged under the weight of unsent love and overdue honesty. One letter read, "Dad, I never thanked you for coming to my high school play. I thought it was nothing. It wasn't." Another, "Mom, I hated you for leaving, but now I understand why you had to go." Visitors came just to walk the path and read. Some stayed, some kneeled, some finally forgave. One woman brought her mother and stood weeping beneath their letter. "Your story," she whispered, "brought me home." And that's when I realized this wasn't just my story anymore. It belonged to all of us, the forgotten, the misjudged, the ones who stayed silent too long, and the ones who found the courage too late. One afternoon, Alex returned, alone. No cameras, no pleas. He stood at the garden gate for 15 minutes before I opened it. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he said. "Good," I replied. He looked thinner, older, a little broken, a little more human. "I just came to say, I watched the videos, I read the comments, I read the letters in the tree. I said nothing. I was wrong, Mom, for all of it. I knew you didn't forget the stove. I just wanted control. I was embarrassed that people respected you more than me. That I hadn't expected. And Jennifer, he paused, she's gone. I think she never loved anyone but herself. Still, I said nothing. He continued, I lost the house, the job, the image. But weirdly, losing everything helped me see what mattered. I nodded, just once. Then I said what I never thought I'd say. You want to help? He looked surprised. Yes, he said quickly, anything. I handed him a stack of letters. Start reading. He sat under the oak tree, among strangers' regrets, and read until dusk. He came back the next week and the next. Eventually, we let him speak to a group, not as my son, not as a cautionary tale, but as a man trying to learn what legacy truly means. He volunteers now, quietly, humbly. We don't talk about the past, not out of denial, but out of purpose. But one afternoon, I saw him pause by the second letter's line. He stood there for a long time, reading the notes fluttering in the breeze like silent apologies. Then, slowly, he took a pen and wrote one of his own. He clipped it at the very end of the string, where the sun hit hardest. I never read it, but I saw how he touched the paper afterward, like it was both confession and release. Later that day, a teenager asked him, Do you think people really change? He looked at me briefly, then answered, Only if they remember what they forgot and mean it. And in that moment I saw not just my son, but a man unlearning pride, one truth at a time. As for Jennifer, I don't know where she is, but I know where I am, and that finally is enough. The house breathes again. Every creak in the wood, every breeze through the curtains tells me Marcus would be proud, not of the fight, but of the finish, of what we turned pain into, of how we turned a garage exile into a garden of reconciliation. And so, to those listening now, if you've been made to feel small, erased, edited out of your own life, I see you. If you've held on to memory like it's the only weapon you had, I honor you. And if you think your story is over, let this be your reminder. It's not. Sometimes the quietest chapters come right before the most unforgettable ones. And that was my story. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted the truth to live longer than silence. If this story touched your heart, made you pause, or reminded you of someone who deserved better, don't let it vanish into the scroll. Subscribe to Grandma True Stories for more true stories from quiet voices that refuse to stay forgotten, because wisdom doesn't shout, it remembers. And when a grandma speaks, the world finally listens. Thank you for watching. Stay kind, stay brave, and never underestimate the quietest woman in the room.